Hey students, hope you are well. So we're going into our fifth and sixth weeks, and I think in the email I sent you, I also included the writing stuff for the seventh week, so you'll know what you'll be doing over the next 3 weeks. I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear some background noise because they're doing some drilling in my building, so you might hear that in the recording. So the next, let's just start with the stone. Thanks so much for your responses. Amazing responses. I know you're all busy, but if you can look at each other's responses, it would be interesting to see how you can see how your other classmates are responding to the texts. I mean, it's really most of you, gave really insightful and sometimes disparate responses. Like some had different feelings about the ending. One student in particular had a different feeling about the entire story, and other people had a different total connection. And I think part of the reason why I would encourage you to read each other's responses is so that you can get a sense and feel how the same work has a different meaning and can be received differently by different people, right? So take that into consideration as you're doing the workshopping, right? The piece may land differently on different people. One of the things that you can take from that feedback is consensus. If there's some consensus, like people are all agreeing about something, that is something that could be helpful for you. And also the other thing you can take is a consensus about things that are strong and things that are not. But also sometimes if things are also disjointed or in disagreement, that could also be a signal to you that maybe something needs attention in the work that you're doing. So, but yeah, so the stone was it's clear there's a method to the madness, right? Of your readings. You're not reading random things because your next assignment is going to be dealing with objects, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the stone specifically, right? I want to say a couple of things about the story. One is that Louise Erdrich is a Native American writer, and is a Native American. So not that she's a Native American writer, she writes about many things, but that's a perspective and understanding how she might sometimes overtly or maybe more subtly interweave what she believes, her cultural perspectives into the work. So this relationship to the stone, in addition to all the amazing things that you all said in your comments, also is about this connection to nature, right? To sometimes we feel like, can a tree respond to us? Can an inanimate object in nature respond to us? And something like a stone has so much symbolism attached to it that what is our relationship to nature? So she literally makes a relationship with this stone, right? And so she takes this kind of idea of let's have a relationship to nature and really develops it into a literal relationship with this stone. We could go on, or I could go on with this story, but I think if you are doing the math of reading The Happy Prince and then reading by Oscar Wilde and then reading The Stone by Louise Erdrich, that you will see that your next assignment is about objects. And so I wanted you to see two stories, very different stories, and how they handle objects. One that had one very central object and another one that had many objects, like the idea of the rubies and the gold leaf and the bird itself and the heart inside of the statue of The Happy Prince. How that other story had many things going on, many objects and many things inside of it. So so that brings me to your next assignment, which I sent an email out that listed the next 3 weeks of assignments. So the next assignment is for you to craft a new story. And the story is you're gonna go look at the objects, and oh my goodness, I could talk about the objects. Amazing class, really amazing work, amazing objects, beautiful human stories. I was like floored by the stories you were sharing about those objects, and so I thank you for being open and honest and really sharing that information with us. So you're giving us the material for the next assignment, and so what you're going to do is you're going to look through your classmates' objects, and you're going to pick 3, but no more than 5, but to incorporate into a story. And the reason I had you read The Happy Prince and The Stone is so that you could see it's not about just placing these objects in a story. It's about, like, there's a lot of books in there, so it shouldn't be a whole story that normally somebody looks on a bookshelf and sees Zelda and sees, a series of books on a shelf, and they just keep walking. So you just kind of plop them in the story. Give them a purpose, a significance. Give them, meaning, symbolism, etc. So think of how do you incorporate the objects. But you have to construct a story, right? So you got to come up with characters. You got to come up with a plot. You got to come up with, a setting. And so that's your next story. So your next story is going to be using the objects. So there's more information on the email and on the website. So you would go to the discussion section and you would upload it there. So that's your generative. Generative means that you're generating a new story work for this week. You have also submitted your second drafts of your first piece. And so those are all in. And this week I will be looking at those and grading those. And the week after, you will workshop that second piece. So you will stay with the first group that you workshop the first draft. That same group will remain the same. You will workshop the second group, the second draft, and then you'll put that there. And then that second draft, once you've got it graded from me and workshopped from your group members, right? And there's a deadline for when that group workshop needs to happen. Then the final draft, or the draft after that, is not due up until the end of class, May 19th, I believe, for the final portfolio, right? So your first one will be kind of in a place to get ready for the portfolio. You shouldn't wait till then. If you've got space, if you've got time, maybe some of you have to do lots of revision. Maybe you have to do a little bit of revision. If you don't have to do a lot of revision for your third draft, I suggest do it sooner rather than later, so you can put it into the keep it in the file and get it ready for the end. So after that, so this week you're going to write a new story, right, on the objects. And the week after, you're going to workshop the second draft of the first story. And the third week, you're going to workshop the first draft of the stone. So that's going to be the succession over the next 3 weeks. The first 2 weeks now, you don't have any extra reading to do, but by the time the third week rolls around, you'll have another video, etc., and we'll have more reading to do for there. That's the assignments. I want to also, I'm looking down because of my notes. So whenever I'm, looking down, is because I'm checking out my notes. So one of the things I want to do is I'm adding, and I'm going to email a handout to you on characters. And so one of the things that on character development. So one of the things that in your comments, okay, so let me talk a little bit about your comments too. So with your comments, sometimes I write lots of stuff with some people and I write less with other people. It just means that there may be more to say. Maybe what needs to work on is something that's very pointed, so there's less to say about it. I try to talk about the things that work as well in the piece. And so if you notice some of the way in which I talk about my feedback, I try to talk about the elements of fiction, the basic elements of character, plot, and setting. So it's important for you to have a good sense, a good handle on character, plot, and setting when you're crafting your pieces. There is, so I did a handout that I sent to all of you on